Live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can subscribe to my channel. That's Cat Peterson 929 on YouTube. You can subscribe there. We've got so much to get to today. First, I do want to talk a little bit about this schmuck who dyes this mice, like these mice. He dyes them like green, red, and black. And I guess it's supposed to be these Palestinian colors. I guess that's their Palestinian flag, which is kind of interesting because, I don't know how these people manage to get a flag, even though they don't have a country. I just kind of chalked up to, hey, BLM has a flag as well, Black Lives Matter. And this is essentially what the Palestinians are. If you've listened to this program, you understand that Palestine is not a country. These are autonomous zones, and they're called Palestinian territories. Now, there are innocent people in the Middle East. I'm not saying that there's not innocent people in the Middle East. The Palestinians are not innocent people. They are Antifa fringe type groups. It's similar to that of what we experienced in Seattle, Chaz. They broke off from Seattle. They created an autonomous zone, these extremists, and that's what the Palestinians are. So when people say, the Palestinian people need to be free, what are you talking about? Because Palestine does not exist. It's not a country. So there's this guy who dyes all of these mice, like actual animals, these little rats, and he dyes them like with hair dye, like spray paint. He spray paints them all in these buckets. And then he throws them into a McDonald's and he yells, "Free Palestine, free Palestine." Spoiler, it did not free Palestine. Okay, it did not free this make-believe country. I could have told the schmuck who did this that this wasn't going to do anything but give McDonald's employees a headache for a couple of days. So we're going to get into that. Plus, more investigation is now required after the Matthew Perry autopsy. So I talked about his death a little bit. He was the Friends actor. Now, this is kind of the first actor that has died that I'm just like, who? I'm not like, who? I do know who Matthew Perry is. There's a lot of times where people are like, oh, these celebrities die, and I don't know them. Like I'm not really into movies or Hollywood, and I don't really take people's deaths too tough. Like I'm not destroyed that Matthew Perry died because I didn't know him, right? I mean, it's sad when anybody dies, but Matthew Perry, this was the first celebrity where I'm like, I know who that is, or I know like what he's in, So his autopsy and his toxicology test were ordered by the coroner, and it's not as clear cut as we had originally thought. So people said he drowned in a pool or drowned in his hot tub. That's not the case. He had a cardiac arrest. I guess it was cardiac arrest that he went through, and then he drowned in his hot tub. But there's more investigation. They haven't even ruled the cause of death. There's just like a lot of speculation surrounding how he died. Now they're investigating it. They're waiting for a toxicology report. Now he has said that he misuses drug, like he's a substance abuse. Okay, he's a drug addict. He's also been a big proponent of the vaccine, COVID vaccine. We know that heart issues come, especially in men, young men. They develop things like myocarditis if they take the COVID-19 vaccine. We understand. We've seen this. And he was a big proponent of the vaccine. He also was known to be pictured with Bill Clinton and in the little black book, Jeffrey Epstein's black book. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about it coming up here in just a little bit. I'm not going to speculate much into his death. I'm just going to tell you, hey, there is an investigation. Here's some things about Matthew Perry I should note. So we're going to talk about that. The cause of death right now is deferred at this time. So a little bit later, we will also be talking about a new report coming out of Illinois. This is a big one, folks, because I actually talked about this just a couple of days ago, and I had no idea. I just was like, okay, I think that the Illinois report card is supposed to be coming out around this time for 2023. I didn't know what day it was actually going to come out. I just know that they kind of do it around this time. So there was a new report that has shown that Illinois is spending way, way more per student than we have in years past. And the enrollment numbers are down. People are not enrolling their kids in public school. And these enrollment numbers continue to decline. But what's even more astonishing is the proficiency rates. Now, people are going to sit there and they're going to tout that they're bouncing back from COVID because the proficiency rates are better than they were a couple of years ago. When you break down the numbers, especially at District 87, and I'm going to get to this because it really peeved me off when I read this, that some sort of superintendent of teaching and learning, he gets out there and he's like, yeah, the proficiency rates, we're making strides to making sure we're making strides to a better District 87, and the kids, we've got a long way to go, but they're getting there. The proficiency rate at District 87 only increased by like 2 percentage points. Okay, and I mean, I've got the numbers, and your jaw is going to drop when you listen to how much we're spending per child, how much that's gone up over the years, and per student. That's your tax. That's your property tax. Okay, when you write your property tax bill, or you write out a check and you pay it, or it comes out automatically. I don't know how you pay your property tax bill, but I'm sure it's like $9,000, $6,000. It depends on where you're at, and it varies on location. But your property tax bill, that's going to the school. Okay, a majority of it is going to the school. Maybe a small portion of it goes to things like fire or infrastructure or police. And when I say a small portion, a fraction of it. Okay, so we're going to talk about this because this new report comes out, and for some odd reason, people are touting these proficiency rates. But then when you look at the actual proficiency rates, you're like, okay, yeah, it increased 2%, but only 15% of the kids can read. It increased from, 15 to 17% at District 87. That's still a crappy proficiency rate. The kids still can't read at grade level. What are you talking about? And you're spending $15,000 per student. That's insanity. All of this and more ahead on the Morning Buzz. You can see me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I do have to take a break, but thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, in the 8 o'clock hour, I am going to unpack 3 holidays. The Holy Trinity, and then at the Holy Trinity, there's all kinds of Jewish festivals that happen in threes. Everything happens in threes, but there's Hallows Eve, which is October 31st, November 1st, which is All Saints Day, and then November 2nd, which is All Souls Day. And these are Christian holidays. Historically, in the early church, we celebrated these for good and holy reasons. Okay. But the pagans and the occult members and these Wicca members, and believe me, they exist, folks, even here in your community. Okay. So what they've done, they've tried to manipulate these holy days, these sacred days, and they've tried to take it from the Christian people. So it's a little bit of both a Christian holiday and a pagan holiday. The pagans are trying to steal it for their causes, but really it originated as a Christian holiday. Hallowed be thy name. Okay, it's in the name, Halloween. It's Hallows Eve, and it's the eve for All Saints Day. We're going to talk about it in the 8 o'clock hour. Coming up in just a little bit, Illinois Family Institute, Dave Smith, going to be joining me. We've got a few things to talk about. First, I do think we're going to unpack this Illinois report where we're spending way more per student. The enrollment numbers are down, and they continue to decline. And the proficiency rates, maybe they've increased by a couple of percentage points, depending on the district, but the proficiency rates still suck, and the graduation rates are still so high. I don't understand, if they're unable to read, why are we passing them? Why are the graduation rates so high? We're back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. We're going to get into so much. This one schmuck actually dying. And I don't even know how to say this because it's so weird. I was like, should I even talk about this story? Because how am I going to do this story without, uh, like, not explaining it correctly? Because nobody in their right mind would do something like this, but this guy did. Some schmuck, he takes some spray paint and he spray paints these mice in these bins, okay? And then he releases these mice into a McDonald's and he spray paints them the colors of the Palestinian flag. Like I've said, Palestinian, that is the Hebrew word for invader. There's literally no country called Palestine. Okay. Look it up. There is no country called Palestine. Now, there are Palestinian territories. And don't look it up on Google because I'm telling you right now, Google is going to probably say that it is a country because the leftists and the revisionists would like you to believe that Palestine is actually a country and that it's a country of innocent people. There are no innocent people, Palestinian innocence, because their literal definition is invader, and the word was given to them by the Jewish people because they've been constantly invading Israel, which has been promised to them by God. Okay. Um, but anyway, so the guy dyes these mice and he dyes them the Palestinian colors. He releases it into a McDonald's and he says, "Free Palestine, free Palestine." And I mean, newsflash, it didn't free Palestine. Palestine is still not a country, and Palestine is still not free. These Palestinian territories are still occupied by Israel, right? But we're going to be getting into all of that. Hey, if you are watching, go ahead, smash that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is going to help me out a lot today, folks. We're back on the other side. Grab a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, sit down, let's have a conversation. Yes, in the 8 o'clock hour, my good friend David Paul Blumenshine will be joining me, and we're going to talk about All Saints Day. Now, All Saints Day is the day after Hallows Eve. Hallows Eve is also a Christian holiday, okay? I do believe that the pagans, the occultists, the Wicca worshippers, I don't know what you call them, they're trying to rob Christians of their holidays, much like they try to do with Easter and Christmas, okay? Uh, they they try to make Easter all about the eggs. And people forget that in the early church, there's actually a significance to the Easter egg. The reason why we have eggs at Easter time, they're actually attributed to the people going on a fast for the early church going on a fast for like 46 days, and they couldn't eat meat or eggs, right? And the hens, of course, didn't know that Lent was going on before Resurrection Sunday. And the hens would keep laying eggs, laying eggs, laying eggs, and these people would continue to store them in their house. So they'd hide the eggs away until Resurrection Sunday. And on Resurrection Sunday, there's this egg, and it tastes so good because you've gone 46 days without meat, without protein, and you're depriving yourself of a protein diet to try to get to some sort of enlightenment on Resurrection Sunday. But yes, so the egg itself is actually, but pagans, what they have tried to do with Easter specifically, I know a little bit more about Easter. I don't know a whole lot about Hallows Eve. I'm not a Catholic. Typically, Catholics celebrate Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and All Souls Day. This is a 3-day kind of event, or a 3-day holiday celebration. Hallows Eve is October 31st. November 1st is All Saints Day. November 2nd is All Souls Day. We'll talk about it here coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, but I know a little bit more about Easter. So, what the pagans have done, they've tried to distort the Christian holiday, the Easter Resurrection Sunday. They even called it Easter. So it shouldn't be called Easter. It should be called something else, like Resurrection Sunday or something like that. But I'd have to look at the early church, what they used to call it. But Ishtar is a pagan deity, and this is like a goddess of fertility. And she tried to say that the eggs were, or the pagans try to say that the eggs are representative of fertility, and the bunnies mate like bunnies, and it promotes sexual promiscuity. And 9 months later, on Christmas, you're supposed to sacrifice all of that life to a different pagan deity. Okay, so this is how the pagans worship these two holidays. Okay, these holidays, they believe in the spring you should have all kinds of sexual promiscuity and create life to to sacrifice it to a different pagan god around the winter solstice. Okay, this is how the pagans have manipulated these holidays and have robbed those holidays from Christians. Okay, so I told you the significance of the egg. Okay, the pagans have tried to manipulate that and distort it and use their a redefining of the holiday, and tried to use the egg to explain, hey, that means fertility, and we sacrifice the bunnies and we sacrifice the children to Satan and to this pagan deity around winter solstice. Okay, this is how the pagans have tried to take it away from the Christian faith. But if you look back at history, and if you uh, just wipe away all of this revisionist history, you will know that All Saints Day, Hallows Eve, and All Souls Day, these are Christian holidays that the pagans have tried to take. Okay, they've tried to take these holidays. This is how the devil works. This is how demons, these fallen angels, have worked, because they can't stand that Christians worship them, because they can't wage war against God. The demons, the fallen angels, they can't wage war against God. They have to wage war against God's people here on earth. Okay, because the fallen angels, they're quite literally fallen angels. They've already lost that fight with God. Okay, so they can't actually go up and fight God, so they try to go after the people. And the demons that roam, these fallen angels that roam the earth, they try to go after these sacred days because they just can't stand that we as Christians worship God and we celebrate these days in the name of either Jesus, in the name of God, in the name of saints, as in today, All Saints Day, which is November 1st. So we're going to get into it in the 8 o'clock hour. So write it down, put an alarm in your phone at 8 o'clock. We're going to get into all of that. But my good friend Dave Smith from the Illinois Family Institute is joining me now. Dave, how are you this morning? How was your holiday?
How are you? You look nice and warm and cozy with that hat on.
Yes, I do. I have my I turned the label around. It's a heart hat, but I've turned the label around. I'm cold. It's freezing, and I cannot wait for it to warm up this weekend. I think it's supposed to get back into the 60s, folks.
Did it snow by you yesterday?
No, but it did by my parents, and they're up about an hour north.
Yep. I'm in St. John, by St. John, Indiana, and the Illinois side in Will County, and it snowed pretty good here. So it came down nice and cold. Winter's here early, but that's okay.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we had snowfall. I remember this very specifically because my car windshield, Dave, I had a tiny little crack in it, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And it was still warm up to that point, but for some odd reason, a couple of years ago, there was this massive snowfall, and, my windshield got cold because there was snow, and the crack just, as I was driving, I saw this crack just spider out, and it happened on Halloween, and I just have this vivid memory of that crack just spidering out, and, so we definitely have had cold Halloweens before.
Yes, that's right. Well, we didn't have anybody come in, but I'll tell you what, just real quick, if you don't mind me weighing in on that issue, one of my favorite verses is Ephesians 5:11 on the Halloween, and it says, "Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them." And so have no part in darkness. So have no part in it. So I suppose you can celebrate Harvest Day, Reformation Day, any of that kind of stuff. But celebrating death and demons and Dracula.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to say is like you can celebrate, but there has to be a reason for your celebration. These Christian reasons, where that history and that early church start. I don't know a whole lot about it. That's why I've got a special guest coming in studio here at 8 o'clock to kind of explain it, because it's more of it's a Catholic thing, and I'm not Catholic, but All Saints Day, I mean, there are, Christians are sort of holy because we remove ourselves from this corruption of the world, and we are given authority via the Holy Spirit. And I'm glad that you're here to kind of talk about it with me a little bit this morning, because you probably know way more than I do. Aren't you a pastor, Dave?
I'm an elder in a church. Yes, an elder. So, and I've done my share of preaching and teaching, so it's fun. But my wife and I, we've been married 28 years. We have 8 kids, and we decided a long time ago not to do the celebration of the death and demons in Dracula. Like I said, we've done Harvest Day. We've actually done 1 or 2 Reformation days with our kids, but that's all kind of petered out lately. I don't know. Some people really like to go to town with outdoor decorations.
I know. Well, I'll tell you right now, Dave, I'm all about the Holy Ghost, not about these ghosts, right? I'm all about the Holy Ghost. That's not right. These ghosts out on the lawns. But no, you're so right. And this paraphernalia that we see in these, spirit Halloweens, the Ouija boards, it's just so sickening. And when you open yourself up to that, these demons are not merciful, okay? They will destroy your life.
Here, let me give you another verse. 1 Corinthians 10:21 says, "You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons." It's not wise to play around with this stuff. And I remember as a kid, some of my friends would dare us to go into a bathroom, close the door, and shout Bloody Mary, I don't know how many, 50 times into the mirror. Do you remember something like this?
Oh,
And then
yeah.
she
My
would
friends
go
used to do
up
that
and,
too.
you know, but your mind plays tricks on you too. And why would you even want to invite that?
I know. Well, and I'll just tell you, I had an experience in a spirit Halloween. We were there and we were picking up like Halloween costumes because we were going to a Halloween costume party. This happened years ago. And somebody in our friend group, they go, Kat, we should get a Ouija board. And I don't know what it was, but something inside of me was just like, I couldn't say no. And I like knew I knew I wasn't going to partake in it at all, but I just was like, I was like, I'm not going to do it. And then they bought it. But I did not participate in it at all. But for some odd reason, I mean, I knew that that was satanic, that it was a demonic practice, but something just I really do. I don't know. That's not like me. You know, I would have said absolutely not. What are you doing?
So
But something just,
for
yeah.
followers of the Lord, we're supposed to keep our eyes on Jesus and just have that hope. You know, if we want to reconnect with parents or grandparents who have gone on before us, it's just a matter of time. You know, so
Yeah.
be
Yep.
patient.
Yep. Well, Dave, one thing that I did want to talk about with you this morning was this report that came out uh,
Yes.
with the kids. And tell me a little bit about Illinois Family Institute and what you guys do for folks who are just so sick of the public indoctrination camps.
So a few years ago, the IFI board of directors realized that, you know, while we lobby in Springfield with our state lawmakers, trying to get them to vote the right way on issues of life and marriage and family and education and religious liberty, parental rights, all those things, you know, with the supermajority of, let's just say, progressives in Springfield, we're not going to be able to stop very much. If they really want to pass legislation, they're going to be able to do it. And so we had to figure out another way. How can we impact our state for good? And the board came to a consensus that the number one threat to our children is government schools. Government schools are the number one threat spiritually, academically, physically to our children. And so, what we have been doing for the last 3 years has been calling parents and grandparents and church leaders, get your kids out of government schools, get them into good Christian schools, homeschool them, micro school them, forest school them. Have you ever heard of the forest school, by the way? It's fantastic. Anyway, all these different options. We've got a slew of options for folks to be able to do educate your children at home. You know, Bodie Bacham is fond of saying, "Don't be surprised if you send your kids to Caesar for their education if they come home Romans." And that is what's happening with a lot of our kids. They're going to be indoctrinated, but they're not being educated academically. And your reference to the Illinois report card, and once again, they issue these report cards, is absolutely shocking. I'm looking on the screen right now at Bloomington School District 87,
Mm-hmm.
and they have, according to this SAT scores in math, only 12% proficient. 12%, only 12. How about English language arts? In other words, reading, 24% proficient. How about science? Well, science is a little better. It's 53. But that, hey, you know what? When I went to school, 53 was still a failing grade.
Yeah, right. And I've got to share this with you because Dave, your jaw is going to drop. When I read this, my jaw just dropped to the floor, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So this is a superintendent. He's an assistant superintendent of teaching and learning at District 87. Here's what he said about the Illinois report card. Are you ready?
Okay.
District 87 remains committed to developing instructional programs that address learning gaps and prioritize student outcomes. Then he goes on, he says, as one of the most diverse schools in Illinois, District 87 prides itself on delivering equitable education for all students, ensuring they're prepared for life after they leave our schools. This is what he said in a news release after this Illinois report card came out. And I mean, he says that, I mean, they go on and they say, well, we're bouncing back from the pandemic. So I actually pulled these numbers just a couple of days ago before this new report came out.
Yes.
Their old proficiency level for reading was 15%. Now they're up. What did you say? I think it was 17%.
For which score? Math or English language arts?
English language arts.
Yeah, 24%.
24%. Okay, so I think it was last year was 15% and it's gone up 24%. So they've gained a little bit of traction, but 24% is still abysmal. Okay. And he says that they're preparing these kids for life after school. I don't know about you, but this isn't a learning gap. This is, hey, the kids can't read. Only 24% of them can read at grade level.
Oh, Kat, you know what? We homeschool our kids, and my eight-year-old, I challenged him the other day because he didn't want to sit down and read what mom assigned him. And I said, look, you want to be a leader one day? And he said, yeah, I want to be a leader. I said, well, you need to read. Lead to read, the old saying. So you got to read. You have to read. You know what are we doing? We're just creating a bunch of, can I say this nicely, useful idiots, so that they don't want smart leaders taking initiative. They don't want healthy, productive members of society. What many of these socialist progressives want is useful idiots who will just be pawns, who are dependent on the government to give them everything. And so it's a self-serving thing where they want to be able to grow government and grow the welfare state as well. So that people can depend on the government. And that's not what we want in Illinois. We don't want that in the United States.
Well, and I also think that a lot of these school districts, what they'll turn around and do, the kids are failing, right? We went through the numbers here of District 87. The kids are failing. The numbers, the proficiency levels, they're not good. And what they'll do, they'll say, well, we need more money to fix the problem.
Right.
And what they do with that money is truly evil because then it goes to administration.
Yes.
Okay? So,
and if you look at the numbers there, the number of students the enrollment is going down actually, and yet the bureaucratic state, the administrative part of it all is going up. What gives? I just have to respond to that one quote though, real quick before I forget, where he says they're dedicated to an equitable outcome. So, in other words, everybody fails. Is that what he's saying? Equitable? He wants everyone to fail. That's what it sounds like, right? And,
because they're not succeeding.
79% graduation rate. 79%, and only 24% can read at grade level? Wait a minute. What's going on here? Taxpayers. I mean, this is your biggest part of your property tax. Every year you pay goes to the schools. Are you satisfied with what you're getting for your money? I'm not.
Well, and then they'll turn around and here, Unit 5, which is the kind of the normal district. So there's two districts here. We've got District 87, and then we've got Unit 5. Unit 5 is actually the 15th largest school district in the state of Illinois. And they turned around and they asked for more money. It was a tax referendum. I forget the exact increase, but it increased the taxes by a significant amount. And they said, well, we need this to do smaller class sizes. We need to get smaller class sizes. Okay, so I thought that was what the referendum was supposed to fix. Unit 5, they just put out this survey, Dave, and all of the teachers and some of the families, they surveyed, what was it, like 3,000 students, 2,000 families, and 700 staff members about. And all of the teachers believe that there's not an adequate amount of space and that the class sizes are not conducive to learning. Okay, so a lot of the teachers don't think that they're still getting, they're not getting those class sizes that this tax referendum was supposed to address. But I'm not kidding you. I bet, and I mean, I am going to bet that Unit 5 is going to come back with another tax referendum, and they're going to say, well, we need more money because the class sizes are still not small enough. And here's the thing. It's throwing money at problems, and really what they're doing, they're lining the pockets of the administration. A couple of quick numbers, Dave. Student growth from 2000 to 2019. These are the numbers I've got. Student growth just at a national level. was only 7%. Teacher growth was only at 8%. Administration, a whopping 87.6%. That's
Holy
growth.
smokes.
Yeah, that's the numbers. Those are the real nationwide numbers. And yeah, this is incredible. Dave, tell me a little bit about, these tax referendums and what the school is doing with the administration.
We have to get, activated and motivated as citizens on the local level here, because the unions are really pushing hard. The teacher unions are really growing hard to grow their own membership. And all these administrative spots are really just helping the union, and that's it. It's not helping our scores. It's not helping the graduation rate. It's certainly not helping prepare students for the future. And so, what I would encourage folks there is, right now we have an opportunity to run for precinct committeemen. You might be able to run for local offices. I don't know what it's like there in Bloomington, to tell you the truth, but for county spots, for township spots, for village spots, we need to have an influence and take this back and roll it back and start doing what's right for our kids and holding these guys accountable. I mean, I'm not even sure. You keep hearing stories that they can't find qualified teachers. So what are they putting in the classroom is what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. Did you have a principal or a secretary that transformed your life? 87%, that's how much they've grown. No, you had a teacher who transformed your life, but we're not giving that money to teachers. We're not expanding teachers. We're not, because I just rambled off these numbers. They're not growing. They're not putting more teachers in there to reduce the class sizes. They're lining their pockets, the administration that's currently there, and they're creating administrative roles that, I mean, what do they even do? It's insanity. But Dave, we've got to take a break. Where are you going to be on November 9th with me?
We're going to be holding a special fundraiser for Pastor Chaplain, whatever you want to call him, Stephen Lee, in Shanahan, Illinois, Family of Faith Church, November 9th. We're going to be celebrating him. He is actually being prosecuted, maybe even persecuted, by a district attorney in Georgia, because he was exercising his First Amendment rights to investigate some charges of fraud. What did he do? He knocked on 2 doors. He made 2 phone calls. That's it. A pastor. And if he's in threat of being charged with RICO, with violating the law, trying to subvert an election, we better hang up our precinct committeemen's shoes. I tell you, this kind of prosecution cannot stand. It cannot be a precedent going forward. We need to support Pastor Lee and David Shostokis, who is his attorney, as they fight for vindication. How about that?
I'm excited to see you on November 9th. It's 6 o'clock, folks. You guys are going to want to get there early at the Family of Faith Church in Shanahan, Illinois. And I'm going to be moderating.
Right outside of Joliet. Come on up. Have some fun. Meet some good, like-minded patriots.
Dave, you have a great rest of your day. And thanks so much for joining me here on The Buzz.
Thank you, Kat.
All right, folks, we're going to be back here in just a little bit. I do want to talk about this schmuck. You guys won't believe it. He released all of these mice into a McDonald's. Why did he do it? That's next on the Morning Buzz. Hi, folks. Good morning. John, I would have to look into this. I think you're actually right. I think I've got it all backwards. But yes, so there is a pagan worship of this holiday, Easter Ishtar. This is the pagan deity. She's like some sort of goddess of fertility, and she promotes sexual promiscuity, from being sexually promiscuous. So that way you have all of these babies and fertility, and then you sacrifice all of the birth in the winter solstice, okay, to another pagan deity. And I forget the name of that. I really try to remove myself from the pagan holidays and how they worship these holidays, or how they celebrate these holidays. For me, Resurrection Sunday, I don't even call it Easter, because they've taken Easter, and they've played on this word. It's called Ishtar. So, I mean, if the Christians came along and tried to celebrate Christmas and take this holiday away from the pagans, that's kind of interesting. I think there's this back and forth, really. It's this war between evil and good when it comes to these Christian holidays. And I've been talking about Hallows Eve, which was October 31st. Today is All Saints Day. And then the third day, which is November 2nd, All Souls Day. So I do want to read this. I do believe that we have an obligation as Christians to not celebrate the dead, but to um, kind of honor our dead. This is why we have gravestones, and in the Catholic faith, they believe that you are to keep up this gravesite, and this is a way of honoring people. Now, All Saints Day is kind of interesting, and I want to kind of explain the definition of what a saint is. Okay, so saint originates from the Greek word meaning holy or set apart. For example, in Acts 9:13, Simon says, "Lord, I have heard from many about this man, how much evil he's done to your saints." These are set apart people at Jerusalem. Here, saints refers to all Christians at Jerusalem, not just a special group of Christians. So I think, in a way, Christians are saints because the biblical view is a little different from the Roman Catholic view of saints. In Catholic theology, saints are this special class of believer, and they're believed to have this special sainthood. And if they get up to, or when they get up to heaven, they're honored and bestowed with something in the afterlife. Okay. Now, I do think that the Bible views every Christian as a saint because we are set as someone set apart for God's work. Okay. So in a way, we are to do the work of ministry for building up the body of Christ. So in a way, we're saints. Christians are called saints because they are called to live to set apart, or set apart and live and set apart themselves from the corruption of the world. Okay, so we're followers of Christ. Um, Now, this day, All Saints Day, is to really celebrate those who were martyred in the name of Jesus Christ. We're going to get into it in the 8 o'clock hour. I don't want to give away too much of it, but you guys keep listening. Smash the like button if you're watching and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. We've got so much to get to. So much. The schmuck dyeing these mice. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, what are you talking about, Kat? Yes, actually spray painting these mice. And he throws them into a McDonald's and he yells the words, "Free Palestine!" Spoiler, this did not free Palestine because one, Palestine is not a country, it's a Palestinian territories. I like what Ryan says on the live stream. And folks, I'm always live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Ryan, he says Palestinians allowed and voted Hamas to run their territory. Majority supports what Hamas did. They claimed they're freedom fighters. Yes. So it's very hard for us to grasp because here in America, we're a little spoiled and we don't have anything like this turmoil that's gone on in the Middle East for centuries, for thousands and thousands of years. Okay, so Palestinians, the Hebrew word, the Palestinians, it comes from a Hebrew word, means invader. So there is no country called Palestine. There aren't innocent people who are Palestinians. That's literally like the antithesis of what the word Palestinian actually means. They're an invader. They are not innocents. Okay, so they broke off and they've created these autonomous zones. So similar to what we had here in America during the 2020 George Floyd riots, Chaz, and there were a couple of other, I think there was Chop or something like that. There was also something in Atlanta. It was called Cop City. We've kind of seen this in the United States where these people break off and they create these autonomous zones. Antifa, BLM, they create these autonomous zones. And within those zones, they actually appoint people to protect the territory. We saw this in Chaz. They broke off from Seattle. They had these big old guns, and these men would walk around Chaz and really protect the border of Chaz. This is an autonomous zone. Would you say Chaz is a city in America? No, it was an autonomous zone. It was a bunch of freaks who were partaking in lawlessness, and they appointed people with guns to protect them within this autonomous zone. So that's exactly what's going on at a much larger scale in the Middle East, and it's been going on for generations, for thousands and thousands of years in these Middle Easterns. Now, I'm not saying that there's not innocent non-Israelis. Okay, I think that there's innocent Muslims and Arabs. However, when people say that there's innocent Palestinians, that's just, it's like a what do you call it? An oxymoron. Like, it doesn't fit. When you say innocent invaders, well, that's kind of like defeats the purpose of the name Palestinians. Palestinians comes from the Jewish people. They said that these people are invaders, and in fact, the Palestinians have adopted that name, and they like that name because that's what they're all about. They want to invade Israel and take away as much land as possible and eradicate the Jews. That's their whole existence. That's why they're called Palestinians. Okay, so now that I've got that out of the way, this schmuck, he spray paints these mice. Progressive liberals, Democrats from the West have been culturally appropriating anti-Semitism for decades now. Okay, liberals, progressive, Democrats, they're cool with the anti-Semitism, and they've been culturally appropriating it here in the United States. It's only fair that a Hamas supporter borrows their slacktivism and affection for pointless dramatic gestures. Okay, so Hamas supporters, they are borrowing the progressives, the liberals, the Democrats, the BLM type activity. I call it slacktivism instead of activism, because really they're just slackers. It's not true activism. They're disgusting. But we're going to get into this story. We're going to get into this story here coming up in just a little bit, because this dramatic gesture, all it took was some dye, some spray paint, 3 buckets of mice, a McDonald's, and a total lack of dignity coming from this guy. We're going to get into it here on the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you guys are watching, go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to be back in just a little bit. I will be talking a bit about this guy. This schmuck, he dyed some mice, he spray painted them, and then he threw them into a London McDonald's. I think it's kind of funny. But I'm going to call this performance Enjoy Your Rat Burgers. To set the stage, it's a McDonald's that's been giving free meals to Israeli soldiers after the October 7th terrorist attack, where 14 Israelis were slaughtered. Women were raped and families were burned alive, and the infants were beheaded. Okay, people who support these terror attacks are just jealous because they want these free burgers too. Okay, um, enjoy your burgers. I'm going to get into the 3 different acts here, and then a little bit later we are going to be talking about the investigation into Matthew Perry's autopsy. A toxicology test has been ordered by the coroner, and we will be getting into a new report out of Illinois that shows that we're spending a lot per student while the enrollment numbers continue to decline and proficiency rates suck. Now, they might be improving, but they still suck. It's November 1st, or 53 days until Christmas. Today is also All Saints' Day. In the 8 o'clock hour, I will be talking about Hallows Eve, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day. So, Hallows Eve is October 31st, All Saints' Day is November 1st, and November 2nd is actually All Souls' Day. These are all Christian holidays, and there's this argument out there that, oh, Halloween is a pagan holiday. Well, it's kind of true that it is, but it's also kind of not. I truly do believe that the pagans, the occultists, and the Wicca members, these satanic worshipers, right? They're trying to steal and to rob Christians of these holy days, much like they've tried to steal Christmas with Santa Claus, and much like they've tried to steal Easter with a bunny that goes around and gives you a basket. Okay, so we're going to be digging into that in the 8 o'clock hour. And I'm very excited because David Paul Blumenschein, former Catholic, will be coming in and explaining a little bit more about All Saints' Day. What is sainthood and why do we celebrate All Saints' Day as Christians? So I'm very excited about that coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. So get your phone out, set an alarm for that. Before we took the break, I was telling you guys about this schmuck who dyed some mice, and he threw these mice into a McDonald's in London, and he was screaming, "Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!" Spoiler: he did not free Palestine by throwing these mice into this McDonald's, much like the Hamas caucus members are not freeing Palestine either with their calls for a ceasefire. Because you can't really free Palestine because Palestine doesn't exist. It's not a country. Palestinian, okay, it's a derivative of the word. Somebody corrected me on the text line. I think it's called Philistine. Okay, it's a Hebrew word. I'm not a Hebrew expert. Okay, I don't claim to be, but the word itself, Palestine, is a derivative of the word Philistine, which is a Hebrew word for invader. Okay, to be as clear as possible. But at the end of the day, it means invader. It's a word given to these people by the Hebrew people, by the Jewish people, because that's exactly what they are. They're invaders, and they've tried to steal Israel from the Jewish people, from the Jewish state, because they don't believe that Israel should exist because they're big mad that God promised that land to them. Okay, so it's hard for us to really understand what these Palestinians are, who they are, and why they exist, and why these Palestinian territories exist. I point you to Chaz here in America. This was during 2020. It was an autonomous zone created by Antifa, BLM. These are extremists who broke off from the city of Seattle. They created their own autonomous zone, and then they voted people within this autonomous zone. This would be Hamas in the case of Palestine. or these Palestinians, right? They voted these people in with guns, and they gave these people authority to walk around with guns and to protect the autonomous zone. Okay, so this is a similar situation in which in the Middle East, it's just at a much larger scale. Okay, we had that here in the United States, but it didn't gain any kind of traction, and it was a very small autonomous zone. This has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, where these Palestinians have been creating these territories, these autonomous zones. So we're going to get into this schmuck dying the mice and throwing them into a McDonald's. I think it's kind of a funny story. Later, we will be talking about Matthew Perry. Most of the time when celebrities die or actors die, I go, who? I'm not much of a Hollywood buff or a movie buff. I don't really care because I don't know these celebrities, right? I've never met them. Maybe I've seen them in a film, but their deaths don't mean a whole lot because I don't know them at all. A lot of times people will be like, "Oh, I'm just so crushed that the celebrity died." And I'm like, "Did you know them? Did you see them?" Um, Not to say that death isn't sad. Death is extremely sad. But Matthew Perry, this was the first celebrity where I was like, "Oh, I know who that is." Um, or I know of him, right? I know of him. It didn't crush my soul or anything like that. I know of him from the TV series Friends. But more investigation is now required because Matthew Perry's death wasn't as clear cut as we had originally thought. We thought that he died from a cardiac arrest, from a drowning. His autopsy comes out. There's a toxicology test ordered by that coroner. The cause of death has now been uh, labeled as deferred at this time. So this is kind of odd. Some things to note about Matthew Perry. Matthew Perry was a big proponent of the vaccine. And I'm just saying, take these notes down, okay? I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying take the notes down. Things that are worthy of note. Matthew Perry was a big proponent of the vaccine. He also had a big drug addiction problem that was well documented, okay, by Matthew Perry himself. Number three, he has been pictured with Bill Clinton, and he was in this little black book, Jeffrey Epstein's little black book. Okay, so these are all things of note when it comes to Matthew Perry. So we're going to get into that. Plus, we've already kind of talked about this new report coming from Illinois. It talks about how we're spending way more per student while enrollment numbers continue to decline and proficiency rates continue to suck. So there's a lot of people in the state right now who are touting graduation rates. They're touting that the proficiency rates, well, they've improved since COVID-19. Okay, but they still suck. So I don't know why you're celebrating this and why you're sitting there saying, "Oh, we are doing everything we can to prepare kids for life after school and prepare them for life." No, you're not. The kids can't even read. We're going to get into it here on the Morning Buzz. But like I said, this guy, he goes in, he has this pointless, dramatic gesture, and liberals, Democrats, progressives, and from the West, really, they've been culturally appropriating anti-Semitism for decades now, okay? And this Hamas supporter, he borrows some of their slacktivism from the West here. Now, this happened in London, okay? So this Hamas supporter, I think he looks at what progressives, what liberals, and what Democrats do here in the States, and he's borrowing what I like to call their slacktivism and this affection for pointless dramatic gestures. You know, here in the United States, we'll have people cement themselves to the street in the name of climate change or whatever. And these leftists, these progressives, they do these really weird dramatic gestures to try to make a point, and actually they don't make any sense at all. But much like what we do here in the West, the progressives, the Democrats, this guy kind of borrowed this slacktivism, and he took some dye, he took some spray paint, 3 buckets of mice, and McDonald's, and he went to McDonald's, and that this is a recipe for disaster. And I'm going to call his little performance here, "Enjoy your rat burgers." Okay, this is his performance. To set the stage, McDonald's, they've been giving free meals to Israeli soldiers since October 7th. This terrorist attack, we know that it killed over 1,400 Israelis. They were slaughtered on this day, October 7th. This was a terrorist attack where Israelis were slaughtered, women were raped, families were burned alive, and infants, they were beheaded. They had their heads chopped off. People who support those terrorist attacks, they must be jealous because they want free burgers too. Okay, so enjoy your rat burgers. Enjoy your rat burgers can be told in 3 acts. So let me start with act number 1. Our antagonist, let's call him Rick. He took 3 buckets of mice. He spray painted the mice in one bucket red, and then another he spray painted them black, and then in another bucket he spray painted them green. This all symbolizes the Palestinian flag. Like I said, Palestine is not a country, but they do have a flag, much like the Black Lives Matter. Here in the West, they have a flag, okay? So had he not done this, the people in McDonald's would probably wonder why, or they'd have no idea why this random schmuck was dumping mice all over this London eatery. Okay, so act number 2. Like I said, this performance, eat your rat burgers, can be told in 3 acts. We're on act number 2. We see Rick throwing the mice through an open door, yelling, "Free Palestine! Boycott Israel!" And then he has a catchphrase, "Fudge Israel," except he didn't say fudge. Okay, so that's act number 2. Act number 3, we can see Rick driving off with his face covered like a coward. Yes, because throwing mice into a packed McDonald's in London and shouting, "Free Palestine," will not, in fact, free Palestine. Okay, newsflash. Spoiler, it didn't freeze Palestine. So McDonald's, they actually issued a statement to the New York Post. They confirmed that this incident did happen. And they said, following the removal of the mice, the restaurant has been fully sanitized and our pest control partners have been called to conduct a full inspection. Look, much like Rick, there have been calls for an Israel ceasefire to let Hamas get away with this one. And these calls have been coming from the Hamas caucus members like Ilhan Omar, who married her brother, AOC, Rashida Tlaib. Shall I go on? The ceasefire calls have been coming from Hollywood celebrities, college professors, Joe Biden's Democrat colleagues. In fact, the Office of Palestinian Affairs, the U.S. Office of Palestinian Affairs, they actually tweeted out the day after the attack, October 8th, that there should be a ceasefire from Israel and that Hamas should get away with this terrorist attack. But out of all of this, out of Rick and his mice, the Hollywood celebrities calling for a ceasefire, the Office of Palestinian Affairs tweeting for a ceasefire, as of today, Palestine is still not free because Palestine isn't a country. It doesn't exist. Okay, I do have to shift gears here. We're going to talk about the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office in the case of Matthew Perry and his death. His remains, this death remains shrouded in mystery. Okay. So now this death has been marked as deferred pending pending further investigation. So his family, Matthew Perry, and I liked Matthew Perry in Friends. I thought he was a terrific actor. I can say that. I don't get I don't know, when Jimmy Buffett died, when, actors die, a lot of people get all upset about it. Death is really sad. It's a part of life. But death is really sad. But I don't get destroyed by when celebrities die because I don't know them. I might catch them in a movie or I might listen to their song, but I don't associate we're not friends. I can appreciate your art, but at the end of the day, we're not friends. I don't take your death as tragically as, I would my own grandmother or my own family member, okay? Because I don't know you. Not to say that Matthew Perry's death isn't sad. It is sad. It just doesn't destroy me. But Matthew brought so much joy to the world. This is what his family said. We're heartbroken by this tragic loss of our beloved son and brother. I bet they are. And he was such a joy to the world, both as an actor and as a friend. So the initial autopsy conducted, officials were eagerly awaiting the crucial results of the toxicology reports, a process that could be extended over several weeks. These reports were anticipated to shed some light onto whether there were some external substances that played a role in the actor's untimely passing. This was a shock, right? He died at like, I think it was 54. He was in his 50s. And they got there, they thought it was a drowning. Then they said it was cardiac arrest. Now they're doing a toxicology report and they suspect that there might be external substances used, but they haven't given a rule of like a, they've put the death into a deferred status. So this is kind of wild. He was in his hot tub, okay, and he died. Some things I'm going to note about Matthew Perry. He was listed in Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book, okay? I'm not saying that this had anything to do with his death. Now, stop it with that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't have a tinfoil hat on. I'm just noting things, okay? I'm just making note of some things. He was listed there. He's pictured with Bill Clinton. He was a big proponent of the jab. He was also known to have a long documented history with addiction and substance abuse. I'm just going to say that and make note of that. It's going to be, I hope that we get a death ruling soon. Eyewitnesses, they recall a distressing 911 call on Saturday afternoon citing a water rescue emergency at Matthew Perry's house. The LAPD swiftly responded, and they reclassified this incident as a critical death investigation. So it's kind of it's all shrouded with mystery at this point, the death. I've got to take a break, but when we come back, I'm excited to talk about it. Illinois, there's a new report out there. We're spending so much money per student, but yet the kids can't read. And I've got numbers here, and I've got something from Bloomington District 87. They released this news release, and they're like sitting there touting that, oh yeah, things are going to get better. Things are on the rise since COVID-19, and the kids are doing better in reading. When you look at the proficiency rates, they still suck. Okay, they still are not good. So we're going to come back. I'm going to have a lot of numbers for you, so get ready, buckle in for the receipts. This is Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much, folks, for tuning in. We are going to be talking a little bit about this new report to have come out. Kieran Jean-Pierre is also out there. And I think you guys are going to like this because she makes a reference to Charlottesville. She goes, yeah, but Charlottesville. And Kieran Jean-Pierre is refusing to denounce Semitism, pro-Hamas protests that are taking place here in America. So we're going to talk a little bit about both of these stories here on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Beware of the sugar crazed kids because 81% of the kids are going to eat their candy haul within the first week here. Okay, within this week, they are going to be eating their Halloween haul from last night. 25% of them will finish it all by today, actually, their Halloween haul. 53 days until Christmas. Halloween's over, which means we're going to start talking about turkey. That's right. The turkey hotlines open today. The experts at Butterball and Jenny O are ready to field any questions and concerns you have about your bird this year. This includes questions about buying a turkey, how to cook it, stuff it, brine it, and what to do with the leftovers. So, talking about turkey, they've actually got their hotlines open, Butterball and Jenny O. If you have any concerns about your bird this year, I'm not a big fan of turkey. I don't like turkey. If I had my way, we'd smoke some brisket and we'd have brisket on Thanksgiving. I'm not a big fan of turkey. But yes, today is also All Saints Day in the 8 o'clock hour. I do plan to talk about All Saints Day, Hallows Eve. And then on November 2nd, there is something called All Souls Day. So these are 3 days. We're going to talk about how these are Christian holidays that have actually been attacked by pagans and by occultists and Wicca worshippers or whatever you call it, and how they've tried to manipulate these holidays. And is it a pagan holiday? Is it a Christian holiday, Halloween? We're going to get into it here on the Morning Buzz in the 8 o'clock hour. I was talking a little bit about Easter, Christmas. There's also some controversy there. I'm going to unpack it all in the 8 o'clock hour with you. But before I get into all of that, a couple of things that I wanted to run through here in the 7 o'clock hour. This is a big report that has come out in Illinois. And we've got the numbers here where all of the proficiency rates, they kind of still suck. Maybe in some districts they've improved a little bit. In District 87, I think the reading rate has improved a teensy bit. And let me just give you a couple of quick numbers, okay? When we're running through this Illinois report, $3,800 is the average property tax bill nationwide. Alabama, you pay about $882 a year on your property tax bill. The state of Illinois has the second highest property taxes in the country. A typical homeowner is going to pay about $4,800 annually. In Bloomington Normal, you're probably not paying $4,800. You're probably paying something closer to $6,000. And in fact, I know somebody who lives in Downs who is paying $9,000 for their property tax bill. Like I said, in some areas, this figure can get up to $6,000 per year in the state of Illinois, sometimes $9,000 per year in the state of Illinois when it comes to your property tax bill. Who's beating us? New Jersey. Their residents pay about an average of about 9,000. This is the highest of all United States, United States states. So New Jersey, they pay the highest property taxes. Now, what are your property taxes going towards? Where it's the schools. Very small portion of it might go to like a fire department. But a majority of it is going to schools. And you're like, okay, Kat, well, I don't mind. I like schools. I want kids to be educated. Well, that's not what's happening in our United States public indoctrination camps. In the United States from 2000 to 2020, spending per student went up 27%. On a national average, we're looking at about $16,000 per student. Taxpayers will spend nearly $30,000 per student in the Chicago public schools. This is in 2023. Okay, so the recent numbers that came out, we're looking at as the Chicago public schools per student. They're looking, I mean, this is doubled in the last decade. And enrollment in Chicago public schools have actually shrank by 20% over the last decade. So enrollment numbers are down across the board in the state of Illinois when it comes to our schools, but also our spending is way up, way, way, way up. Unit 5 spends on average, I think, about $13,000, maybe a little less than that. District 87 in 2023, we've got the numbers here. They spend about $15,000 per student. Okay. So, but by everything quantifiable, it looks like their proficiency, I mean, their proficiency rate has plummeted. Their absenteeism rate is skyrocketed, where kids aren't going to school. They're absent all of the time. And I'm looking here at the District 87 numbers. Now, I pulled these numbers. I think that these are right from the Illinois report card. 17% is what I'm looking at here for District 87. Now, I think that's district-wide. That's 17% for proficiency in ELA. That's English language arts. So they're reading, right? Okay, so only 17% of kids at District 87 can read at grade level. You look at math, it's at 12% can do math at a proficient level. Only 12% of them district-wide can do math at grade level. For science, it's significantly higher. It's 53%. Of the kids in district-wide can do math at a proficient level. Okay, so here it is. District 87, they're spending $15,000 per student, but yet only 17% of the kids can read at grade level. More money does not equate to fixing more money does not mean better outcomes. Okay, that's just the facts. And here we have the assistant superintendent of teaching and learning at District 87 after these numbers came out from the Illinois report card. He says District 87 remains committed to developing instructional programs that address learning gaps and prioritize student outcomes. Well, you're not prioritizing student outcomes, folks. Sorry, District 87, but you're not, because if you were, 17%, that would not be the number that exists in District 87. 17% of kids can read at grade level. If you were committed and if you were prioritizing student outcomes, then that number would be way higher. Okay. Now, everybody across the state, all these districts, they're saying, well, our numbers are better than what they were during pandemic times. Well, that's not true. A couple of days ago, I looked at the reading proficiency for District 87 before the 2023 numbers came out. Now, it was 15% for the reading level. So it's increased by a couple of percentage points. They're up a little bit, which is true, but they're touting that as if, proficiency rates are skyrocketing and we are doing everything we can and we are addressing the learning gaps. This is more than a learning gap. The kids aren't reading at grade level. So then in this news release by District 87, they go on, they say, as the most diverse school district in the state of, or as one of the most diverse school districts in Illinois, District 87 prides itself on delivering equitable education to all students. That they sure are doing, because if only 17% of the kids are reading, that means really close to none of the kids are reading. And you are providing an equitable education where that education is that they all fail. So I guess it is equitable in that sense, because all of the kids are failing, all of them, ensuring that they're prepared for life after they leave our schools. I don't know about you, but reading really does help me in my daily life. Okay, so life after school, after they leave their schools, probably is pretty hard if you can't read or if you can't do math. Now, I'm not saying it's all the schools. There's plenty of societal crap that goes on that affects the children to where they aren't reading. I mean, we're living in a time where we have so much access to literature. In my pocket, I've got a computer that I can just type in any book I want and have access to it for 99 cents. Right? I mean, for 99 cents, if you've got not 2 pennies to rub together, you can read anything out there on the internet. And I think there's a lot of society, a lot of parenting that contributes to this problem. But here's the thing: our money isn't really going to those issues. Our money, our property taxes, we know that's traceable. It's going to our school districts. More money, and the kids are worse off. They claim that more money equals, this is what the left does. They claim it means better outcomes. That's what they did with the Unit 5 tax referendum. They said, if you give us more money, our class sizes are going to be smaller. Well, that's not the case, folks. And I'm going to get to that here in a second, Unit 5. So buckle in if you're listening here to the Morning Buzz Cities 92.9. So that's the claim of the left. They say that more money equals better outcomes. We know that's not the case when it comes to our public schools. As I just told you, the outcomes suck. The left is so evil. They know that when you have more money coming in, you spend it on what you need. So the way you operate your household, right? The way I operate my household is, hey, if my water heater is busted and I have extra income coming in, then I'm going to spend that extra income on the water heater that's busted. More money means better outcomes for me and my family. My family has hot water now, okay, because I spent that money on the hot water heater that I needed. So they know that that's how you operate in your household. So they try to manipulate you, and they try to make you think that that's how they run things at the school. But that's not true, because it's not their money. Okay, when you get a birthday card from grandma and she stuffs $100 bill in there, most likely you're going to spend the $100 on something you want, or, gift cards, right? Somebody gives you a gift card, that it's their money, and you're more likely to spend their money on something you want uh, than it is something that you need. When it's your money, you tend to spend it on your needs. When it's somebody else's money, you tend to spend it on your wants. It's just the way humans operate. It's not their money, it's your money, and this is how they spend it. Some more numbers for you. Every time you're writing this tax check, you're paying your property taxes. And mind you, if you don't pay your property taxes, guys with guns, literally guns, will come into your house and take your house away from you, or really convict you and throw you into jail if you don't pay your property taxes. Try not paying your property taxes and see what happens. No, don't do that. But I'm not saying that, you shouldn't pay your property taxes, but it's not going towards the roads. It's going towards the school. We know this. It's not going towards police and fire. It's really going towards the school, majority of it. Where's all the money going? You pay this property tax, but you have to pay your property tax bills, which I think property tax in and of itself is unconstitutional, because really you're just renting this plot of land from the government, and you can own your house, the house that your land sits on, but yet you still have to pay rent to rent out that land. And that's unconstitutional, because the pursuit of happiness, there's this means pursuit of happiness means you have private ownership. That's what it's implied in the Constitution. I think it's unconstitutional property tax, but that's besides the point. Where's the money going? Administration. Here's a number. From 2000 to 2019, district administrators grew a whopping 87.6%, and they continue to grow. This is far outpacing the growth of students, especially here in the state of Illinois, because enrollment is way down. We only had, at a national level, student growth was only at 7%, and teacher growth was only at 8%. So the money isn't going towards more teachers to reduce class sizes. The money isn't going towards the students because they're not growing. These populations are not growing within the school. What is growing is this. This is a massive number, 87%. These administrators. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't really remember the name of my secretary. Do you even remember the name of your secretary from your school? Probably not. From your high school, or did you have a great vice principal who had a great impact on your life? Of course not. You might have, I don't know, but more times than not, the teacher has a great impact on your life. Okay, I had plenty of teachers who had a great impact on my life, and they were fantastic teachers. I probably couldn't even name the secretaries at my school. I could try to think of all the vice principals I had. I can't really even remember them because they didn't have an impact on my life, because I didn't see them every day. Now, the money isn't going towards the teacher. It's not going towards that. So in 2023, the average teacher salary in the United States is $68,000. In 2023, the average annual wage of an educator administrator, these administrators, is $102,000. Okay, that's a large gap. And like I said, that's actually not too bad for teachers and administrators if you're looking at it, especially when you include, now those numbers are not annualized, so they actually get all kinds of benefits, 3 months off. If I were to annualize the teacher salary of $68,000 average, probably looking at about $80,000, somewhere around there. That's not too bad. It's not too bad. Plus, you get full bennies. Okay, so you get paid all this much, and the kids still can't read. Until the kids can read, you get nothing. You get nothing. I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. And I do want to get to Karen Jean-Pierre, because Karen Jean-Pierre, she's like, yeah, but Charlottesville. What are you talking about, Karen Jean-Pierre? Because I'm going to debunk that. That was fake news, that story. They said that Donald Trump, was saying that there were some very fine people and that they were white nationalists, and he called white nationalists very fine people in Charlottesville. That's not true. Karen Jean-Pierre refuses to denounce anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests taking place in America. That's next on The Buzz. I bring the receipts. I don't know what to tell you. I do. I love bringing the receipts when it comes to the public indoctrination camps. Your tax dollars are funding propaganda concentration camps. Okay. They're hiring these chief diversity officers. Here at Unit 5, the chief diversity officer makes $110,000. The kids can't read. Until the kids can read, then you get nothing. That's my stance on it. You should get nothing. But in Columbus, Ohio, that's the largest salary for a diversity officer, and that's at a whopping $137,000. So here's what I'm thinking goes on. Okay, I just gave you the receipts. 87% district administrators from 2000 to 2019. That's how much it grew. Okay, 87%. Then you look at student growth, 7%. Then you look at teacher growth, 8%. Do you know a secretary or vice principal that had a great impact on your life? Probably not. Okay, when we talk about a great impact on your life, you think of a teacher. There were probably several teachers that you had that have a great impact on your life. I can't even remember the name of my vice principal. I don't even know who was my vice principal, okay? These people who get these jobs in this school district, and they think that you don't know. Oh, I know. And do you know? These people who get these jobs, these cushiony jobs that are at like $100,000 a year, the chief diversity officer, $110,000 a year, they're pawns of the Democrat Party. Make no mistake. And these jobs are promised to them. Hey, if you work on so-and-so's campaign, I can get you a job at District 87. I can get you a job at Unit 5. And we're going to make sure you're set up for the rest of your life with this job. We're going to rob the people blind. We're going to take the taxpayer dollars and we're going to make it to where the money won't be going to the kids. It's going to go to you. You're going to be set for life. It's paying for the Democrat Party and their campaign. That's what it is. It's taxpayer campaign contributions. That's what we're doing. We're paying for these people to work on the campaigns of Democrats. And I just wish that people would wake up to this, because you've got 57% of voters, I think it is, in the state of Illinois who are for things like school choice. And I have yet to hear a solid argument against school choice or school vouchers. The money would be attached to the child. They sit there, they go and they pick it, they ask for more money, these teachers. They say, oh, it's for the students, it's for smaller class sizes. We never see any of that. We never see smaller class sizes. No. They say it's all for the child. If they were really for the child, we'd attach the money to the child, you see, through school choice. And we'd give the child the choice to go to the school that suits their learning interests and not force them to go to the school in their zip code. The Invest in Kids School Choice Scholarship Program is under attack. It's the tiny little program here in the state of Illinois. It's set to expire at the end of the year. And these legislators are probably not going to extend it. They better extend it, because this is just a tiny little program that benefits like nearly 9,000 kids who are underprivileged, and they get to go to the school that, hey, might not have a 17% reading proficiency rate. I've got to take a quick break. When we come back, Kieran Jean-Pierre, she's out there. She's refusing to denounce these anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests taking place across America. And then she goes, yeah, but Charlottesville. Oh, gosh. This woman is insane. And then I also want to ask this question. Is Mike Johnson the most based House Speaker in 140 years? Today's show is going to get into that here on the Morning Buzz. I'm going to get to your very busy comments. Here we go. COVID has killed attendance. Students learned that attendance isn't important. Parents are too busy working, Bidenomics. Increasing single family homes, the scourge of social media, lowering teacher standards to fix the staff shortages, administration pushing teachers to reduce student work and homework. Too many administrators. I can continue. Yes. Yeah, it's all a mess. And, like I said, it's, hey, I'm going to get you a job here. I'm going to get you a job at District 87 if you continue to work at this campaign or on this or push this idea, if you continue to push this Democrat agenda, then I'm going to get you a job here at District 87. It might not be as blatant as that, but believe me, what we're doing, this is taxpayer funded campaign work. Okay. We are paying for the Democrat Party via these teachers' unions. Okay. They're a part of the teachers' union, and the teachers' union pushes Democrat Party agenda items. Okay. BEA, that's the Bloomington Education Association. They push these ideas. They actually emailed Bloomington educators, hey, email your representatives, act as a campaign, act as a constituent or as a that's what you do on campaigns when you work in a campaign, and you would know this if you've ever worked in a campaign. You email legislators, you knock door to door. This is what teachers unions do. They shill for the Democrat Party. They work for the Democrat Party, these teachers unions. And then all of these Bloomington educators are forced to be in the teachers union. Okay? So what we're doing, it's as clear as day. They are using the taxpayers I mean, this is a taxpayer campaign. And it's wild. We're gonna get to all of it here on the Morning Buzz. I gotta take a quick break. This is Cities 92.9. Yes, All Saints Day. All Saints Day. That's what today is, November 1st. Yesterday was Hallows Eve, and tomorrow is All Souls Day. It's 53 days until Christmas. So around the holidays, I do like to talk about this. And eventually I am going to do a long form podcast. So you guys can look for it on cities929.com, where I get a couple of experts to talk about these holidays. But in the 8 o'clock hour, I'm going to do my best to kind of go through at least Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and All Souls Day, because these are Christian holidays that have, I believe, been taken over by pagans and by Wicca worshippers and occultists. And I do believe that. And there's a lot of talk out there about, is it a pagan holiday? Is it a Christian holiday? Well, a little bit of both. So Hallows Eve, it's literally in the name, Hallows Eve, hallowed be thy name. If you know the Lord's Prayer, it actually means holy. So it's actually a holy day and ultimately leads up to the celebration of All Saints Day, which is today. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. I'm excited in the 8 o'clock hour. We will also be talking about Kieran Jean-Pierre because you won't believe it. Kieran Jean-Pierre, I love when Peter Doocy just totally rips into her. Uh, but it shouldn't surprise us that the White House is using Charlottesville and is refusing to condemn anti Semitic pro Hamas protests around America. Progressives have launched a pro Hamas, anti Jew really rallies across America. Jewish college students have been barricaded in libraries and told not to eat in kosher dining halls. Jews were told to stay home last weekend in New York City because their government cannot guarantee their safety. Yes, this is all happening here in the United States. And Kieran Jean-Pierre doesn't think the president of the United States needs to speak about it because he was vocal about Charlottesville in 2017. What am I talking about next on the buzz? Good morning, folks. Thanks so much. The kids can't read. Let's throw a bunch of money at it. That's what the title of this episode is called. And I was telling you a little bit about how this new Illinois report card comes out. It shows that we're spending way more per student than any other point in history, really, in the state of Illinois. And the enrollment numbers are down. And it's just disturbing all the way around. The proficiency rates are abysmal. And we talked about that in the 7 o'clock hour. I do want to get to Kieran Jean-Pierre a little bit because she brought up Charlottesville 2017, which was all a fake news hoax anyway. They sat there and they said that President Donald Trump was sitting there and saying that the white nationalists, neo-Nazis, which were really a bunch of like pumpkin spice latte sipping college students, okay, who got out there and were protesting, and they weren't actually white nationalists, but that's besides the point. Anyway, they said that he was sympathizing with neo-Nazis. That's not true. In his speech, he said that there were very fine people within this protest. Within it, they weren't all white nationalists. There were white nationalists and neo-Nazis there, yes, on both sides. He said there were good protesters on both sides, but there were these fringy parts of these protesters. There was counter protesters and protesters, and there were fringy parts on both sides. He, in that same speech, condemned white nationalism and neo-Nazism several times. Like when you pull the transcript of the 2017 speech, it's incredible how many times this man condemned neo-Nazism. But the media, they took this, they said that there were very fine people on both sides. They took that tiny little snapshot, the media, and they pushed this narrative that was completely wrong. And here we have Kieran Jean-Pierre pointing to this, and she says, Joe Biden doesn't need to address the anti-Semitism. And I've told you the FBI's Bureau of Statistics of the incidences reported, over half of the incidences that involve a hate crime, over half of them are against Jewish people. And then you look at the anti-Muslim crimes, that's about 9%. They account for about 9% of the hate crime or hate crime instances that have been accounted for by the Federal Bureau of Investigations. And then they're sitting here and they're pointing to Charlottesville as, hey, Joe Biden doesn't need to come out and condemn anti-Semitism because he did it in 2017 with the Charlottesville thing. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, we need a leader who condemns anti-Semitism, even when his side, the people, his acolytes, the Democrats, the progressives, are peddling anti-Semitism. Okay, when it suits you. So we are going to talk about that. Ducey, he asked, does President Joe Biden think the anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists? Even our low standards. I mean, the answers here are low standards for even the White House. 2017, this is what she brings up, and it's quite hilarious. So to recap, Charlottesville was a fake news hoax. Okay, I need to remind everybody that this was a fake news hoax. But we're going to be getting into it here, and then David Paul Blumenshine is joining me next. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. And as I've been teasing all morning, David Paul Blumenshine joining me to talk a little bit about All Saints Day. David Paul Blumenshine, thank you so much for coming in studio.
All Saints Day is today. All Souls Day tomorrow.
All Souls
It's
Day.
a trifecta. You have Halloween, All Saints Day, and then All Souls Day on November 2nd.
And we're going to try to unpack this because I've been kind of doing some reading. I spent all day trying to try to figure this out. I mean, I went down rabbit holes, okay, folks? But Hallows Eve, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
All Hallows
Eve.
Yes.
That's where Halloween comes from. And I think that, is it fair
unless you're a liberal.
Unless you're a liberal and unless you're a pagan.
Yeah.
Okay, same thing. I repeat myself.
Then they don't acknowledge things like that.
Yeah.
And historically, I'm sure they can go back in time, thousands of years, and declare that there were people back then that didn't adhere to the teachings of Christianity, because that's what Christianity taught.
Hallows Eve.
All Hallows Eve. Yeah.
All Hallows Eve. These are Christian holidays. So is it fair to say that these are Christian holidays that have been robbed by pagans over time?
Kat, I think that there's a discussion to be had, a conversation about how those all manifested themselves, like Christmas. Was Jesus truly born in December in Bethlehem?
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, the seasons tell us, when would the shepherds have been in the field?
The spring.
Yeah, I mean,
Jesus
there's a
born
plethora of things holidays that we celebrate, and thank God the holiday that Joe Biden wanted to celebrate yesterday got kind of suspended.
What day was that?
Whatever that thing was you were talking about yesterday.
Oh, yeah. What was it? Intersex Awareness Day.
Whatever. Because everything's a day. And those days are okay, historically, if you're, once again, a progressive.
Yeah.
But no, I digress.
Yeah.
So getting back to the historical perspective, the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church is the oldest of Christian churches, and it's the largest of all Christian churches. And as far as All Saints Day, the difference is what Catholics believe about sainthood and what Protestants believe about sainthood. And I've got a nice little description of that. I don't know what like I said, if you start exploring and really doing a deep dive, because of the way that revisionist, I'm sorry, I'm trying to put my glasses on, Kat, because I had to clean them up this morning. If I'm going to read, with my mature eyes, I have to be able to
mature eyes. But yes, so for folks who don't know, explain, David, that how you know a little bit more about this than I would. You've grown up Catholic, correct?
So yes. So I went. Catholicism was, my birth religion, faith tradition. I was born a Catholic. I was communed a Catholic. I was baptized a Catholic. I was communed a Catholic. I was confirmed a Catholic. I even, at one point in my life, I was part of formation for the Catholic Church called the Rites of Initiation for Christian Adults, RCIA, Rites of Christian Initiation for Adults. Yeah, I got that right, Kat. It's a little early, but I can get these things right. So, I, by no means am I a theological scholar. I never professed to be that. In fact, I don't even know 1 to 2% of all the information about Catholicism or being a Protestant. Now, Kat, I have spent at least most of my life seeking God. And I found him, obviously, seeking God, but seeking an understanding of God, an understanding of truth. What does the Bible say about Christian saints? What are saints? Saint originates from the Greek word meaning holy or set apart. For example, in Acts 9:13, Simon says, "Lord, I have heard from many about this man, how much evil he has done to your saints." Set apart people. at Jerusalem. Here, saints refers to all the Christians at Jerusalem, not to a special group of Christians. The New Testament uses the word saint or saints 67 times. In every instance, the reference is to all believers.
Mm.
Acts 26:10. Hold on, I've got to get rid of this little thing. But here's what the Catholic Church, the theology of the Catholic Church. In Catholic theology, saints are a special class of believers who have been canonized, and we've heard about that, like recently, Mother Teresa, and the process they go through in the selecting and electing saints, and how they have to go through a series of all these things. Did they perform a modern day miracle? And the list goes on.
Well,
It's
and there's
extensive.
so many saints in the Catholic faith. I think for every calendar day year, right, or every day of the year, you would have a saint for every day of the year practically. I mean, it's just full of sainthood.
You bring up a
When
good
you
point.
go through this canonized.
You bring up a good point.
Okay.
Today, obviously, is All Saints' Day, and therefore, you will see the saint of the day. Let's see who the saint of the day is today, Kat. I have that right here. The saint of the day today on the feast of All Saints' Day. Oh, imagine that. The patron saint is instituted in honor of all saints known and unknown. It owes its origin in the Western Church to the dedication of the Roman Pantheon in honor of the Blessed Virgin Mary and all the martyrs by Pope Saint Boniface IV in 609. Kat, I don't know about you. I'm pretty certain most of
That's
us,
early.
nobody was alive on this.
That's
in
early.
609.
Yep.
In fact, nobody that we know that they knew was alive in 609. In fact, you can go up a little further. Nobody that we know that they know that they know that they know probably was alive in 609.
Joe Biden wasn't alive.
Well,
that's old.
the anniversary of which was celebrated in Rome on the 13th of May. Pope St. Gregory III consecrated a chapel in the Vatican Basilica in honor of All Saints, designating 1st of November as their feast. It's a feast day. Once again, as most of these things, when you bring up, is there a saint for every day? Yes, 365. There's been 365 saints that have been canonized through the Catholic Church. Once again, we contrast going back to what I just read about the way that the other side, the rebuttal side of the argument, the Protestants look at it.
They think saints are those who deal with the corrupt world on an everyday basis. They are in some sort of sainthood because they just deal with the corruption of the world and they choose not to participate in that. So that somehow gives you sainthood.
Yes.
Right?
They really lean into things like teaches that the spiritual gifts are given to equip the saints, because it says the saints. They refer to modern day people alive today as saints. And your point being is there's plenty of biblical references that that's what we aspire to be, followers of Christ, therefore saints. Meaning, and I get it. It wears us out, right? Because we've been conditioned to think that a saint is somebody that's an angel with a little halo, right? First and foremost, people are not angels. Angels are not people. You don't die and become an angel. Once again, not teaching from the strict sense of theology, but man's made way of trying to deal with life here on earth. But it just, there's so many references. I mean, it's so steep, and it's tough to understand all of this, as I shared with you.
Either way,
yes.
All Saints' Day is a Christian holiday. I mean, this is a Christian holiday, and I think that
following All Hallows Eve.
Yes, and which is a Hallows Eve is also a Christian holiday. And I think that the pagans what they have done, they've tried to distort and tried to take away these holidays, much like people will understand this. Christmas is taken away from Christians. Easter is taken away from Christians. So actually, I was reading and I got down a rabbit hole about Easter. So people say that the Easter egg, this is a part of the pagan worship, right? Where it goes back to paganism, where there's this deity called Ishtar. And I'm going to go down a real deep rabbit hole. So stay with me, folks. Ishtar, she's the goddess of whatever fertility, and the eggs represent some sort of fertility. And then, she promotes being sexually promiscuous. And eventually the babes are slaughtered to a different pagan deity 9 months later at the winter solstice. Okay, so this is, how the pagans worship these two
I
holidays.
believe it. Kat,
No, I know.
that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter where you go back into time.
hmm
Good and evil have always existed.
Yes, and they've always been battling it out with each other.
And they want their own holidays, right?
Yes.
And they
So we're
and what
battling out
is
each
and
other
truly
for the
did they
meanings of
designate
these
them as
holidays.
holidays back in the days gone by, like 609, what I
Mhm.
just was reading from. No, they designed a liturgical year. This was a fight. This was a battle. Can you imagine that Christians made up predominantly of Catholics, 50%, they have the majority.
Mhm.
It's almost like politics. It's almost like the Republican Party. Conservative, the grassroots movement make up a certain percentage of the Republican Party. Then you have your moderates and you have your neocons and everything else. So there's always an infighting, and it's so inconsistent with what God called us to do.
Mhm.
I mean, Christ himself said, Father, may they be one as
Mm.
I am in you and you are in me. There was no 47,000 different variations of Christianity, which currently, if you went to the Internal Revenue Service, they would tell you that in the United States alone, there are roughly 47,000. I might be a little off on that number, but that's how many different factions there are in
Wow.
Christianity. And you see it played out. If you ever post about a topic dealing with Christianity, how
Mhm.
Christians will consume each other.
Mhm.
If you see that, and you see that in the Democrat Party right now, they're consuming each other over the whole Palestine Israel thing. Man is so flawed. That's why it's easy for me to walk in grace in this world, and I'm not perfect by any means. If I were, they would crucify me more than the Washington Post and the local community here loves to do, because I am the origin of terror. So, but but walking in grace is easy because you realize that people that you encounter are flawed,
Mhm.
no matter what their sin they're dealing with.
Yeah.
You name the sin, it's sin, you know. And as far as I know, there's only been one religion where someone came to this earth and said, I take away the sin of the world through my sacrifice, my body, my blood, my spirit,
Mhm.
was crucified on that cross. However, as we know with Easter, how it plays out, there's something called a resurrection, which no other world religion teaches about.
Mhm.
No other religion. They had gods and they had prophets, but none of them had Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
There's only one Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
And so, if there's only one true Jesus Christ and there's 2.6 billion Christians on the earth, and that leaves about 3.4 billion people, 4.4 billion people to sit there and argue about, is the majority religion truly correct in all they do and manifest?
Mhm.
And part of the reason why we don't have an understanding, because it's not taught. It used to be taught.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I just assumed that everybody was taught about All Saints Day
Yeah.
because I was a Catholic kid going to Catholic school. My daughter called me up yesterday, Kat. I know we're up against a break here. She called me up and said, Dad, she's 25. She's not a dumb person. In fact, she's a pretty sharp young lady. She said, Dad, can you explain what is happening in Israel in terms, like, I'm a kindergartner? Well, that's the essence of everything we have in life. We got to get back to explaining things as
Yeah.
we're kindergartners and staying away from the
and
elitist ways of
stop
things.
stop revising history.
Yeah.
It's such a shame to see, and like you referred to it, Christian eat their own in these holidays. If you celebrate this holiday, that holiday, at the end of the day, if it's centered around good, I don't see where there's an issue with it, right? If you're celebrating the birth of Christ, and if that's where your intentions lie, then I don't see an issue with
Well,
it.
it's like the end times. Put a bunch of Christian people in the room,
Yeah,
if you
and
have,
talk about the end
and
times.
talk about the end times. I
Yeah.
mean, some of them believe in a second come. Oh, they all believe in a second coming.
Mhm,
It's just a matter of how does that play out.
mhm. We're gonna take a break, but today is All Saints Day. Happy All Saints Day to you, David.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about All Souls Day next because that's tomorrow, November 2nd.
Yes.
So
there won't be any candy distributed tonight.
no.
And probably there wasn't a lot of candy distributed last night. It was a little chilly.
Yeah, well, and also I've been seeing this rise in trunk or treats.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for that, and my mom pointed this out last night. I was talking with her, we had dinner, and I was talking with her, and she goes, well, I think the reason why this is on the rise is because people feel unsafe going door to door to door to door.
Yeah.
So now we're doing these trunk or treats, which is great. I like the trunk or treats better, to be honest with you, because it does feel more safe.
Well, and especially if you open your tailgate and you have a warm car that you can sit on the tailgate of, and keep
Mhm.
yourself a little warm. Because last night, sitting out there in my driveway with my little grill, it was not warm.
I'll be back on the other side. This is Cities 92.9. Good morning, folks. We are going to be talking a little bit about All Souls Day, which is tomorrow, but we're going to dive into a little bit more of All Saints Day. David Paul, a former Catholic. Can I say former Catholic? Or still Catholic?
Bottom line is, Kat, is you're always a Catholic.
Mhm.
The Catholics don't believe that anyone in Christianity is a non-Catholic. They just believe they're not in communion with the Church of Rome. They're not practicing Catholicism.
Okay.
So if you were to say former, no, I still honor and acknowledge my Catholic upbringing in my life as a Catholic.
Mhm.
But as all these things go, deeper, how do you go deeper into understanding all of this?
Yeah. We're going to talk about it here next on The Buzz. November 1st is All Saints Day. Yesterday was Hallows Eve. Joining me to kind of unpack it all, people were asking me, Kat, is it a pagan holiday? Halloween? Is it a Christian holiday? Well, I think it might be a little bit of both. I think it started out, the early church started out, hallowed be thy name. That's in the Lord's Prayer. Hallow means quite literally holy. And this is a Christian holiday that I think that the pagans have kind of gripped onto, and they've kind of tried to distort it and take the holiday away from Christians. Now, not to say that the Christians haven't tried to take away holidays from the pagans, but we know what's true, right? Christians, they believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And
they didn't have Walmarts back when this all came up, too. Okay. Or McDonald's,
yes.
or wow.
Wow. Yes. Ouija boards. There's all kinds of paraphernalia.
There's a lot of things that have morphed, progressed out of all things. What a simple thing. Even Christians had to resolve their issues in councils. For instance, the Nicene Creed came out of a council. There's the Trent Council. There's, plethora. Like I said, I know about 1%. It's part of what I'm trying to do in my faith journey, is to go deeper. But the Nicene Creed says pretty simplistically what Christians should all believe in. We believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. I believe in one Lord, Jesus Christ, one Lord. One Lord, only one begotten Son of God, born of the Father before all ages, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten not made, consubstantial with the Father. Through him all things were made. For us men and for our salvation, he came down from heaven, and by the Holy Spirit was incarnate of the Virgin Mary, and became man. For our sake he was crucified under Pontius Pilate. He suffered death and was buried, and rose again on the third day. In accordance with the scriptures, he ascended into heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son, who with the Father and the Son is adored and glorified, who has spoken through the prophets. I believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. I confess one baptism for the forgiveness of sins. And I look forward to the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. Amen. This is what men came together and decided we have to unify around a single message. And really, isn't that what the world is looking for right now?
Yeah.
Is unification.
Unify under
Did
one
I just
single
put you to
message.
sleep with that, Kat?
No,
because this stuff it's so deep, and we don't understand it. We understand,
and there's a lot of
fraction.
revisionists out there, and a lot of evil that takes place. These fallen angels, right, that are roaming the earth. I really do believe in this. That the fallen angels, right? You got Lucifer, fallen angel, where they're roaming the earth and they're trying to take away these holy days that Christians are supposed to be celebrating, or not even supposed to. Well, All Saints Day, it's kind of laid out in the Catholic faith that you're supposed to. This is a holy day that you're supposed to celebrate, or to really
a day of
recognize.
Obligation. Yes,
A day of
holy
obligation.
day of obligation. That's right. And once again, what does that mean? Obligation. It's when man in the flesh tries to manifest himself into the spirit world
Mhm.
by acknowledging his shortcomings, his faults, his failures. You know, I believe we need more of that.
Mhm.
We don't have enough of
Well,
that.
and here's the thing, we've made Easter and Christmas about all of these different things, like Christmas about Santa Claus, we've made Easter about, bunny and eggs and things like that, and, earlier I was talking about the pagan deities and the god of fertility, Ishtar, right, and how people celebrate those pagans celebrate in this way. But when Christians look at it, they look at the history of how Christians have always celebrated the Easter holiday, what we know as Easter Resurrection Day. So leading up to actual Resurrection Day, uh, you'd go Lent. This is Catholic. It's the oldest religion, the oldest Christian religion, and over 50% or 50% of Christians today identify as Catholic. They
Mhm.
say they're Catholic, and in the early church, people don't know this. The Lent, that was a practice of of Catholicism. Lent, it still is.
Mhm.
Leading up to Resurrection Day, that Resurrection Sunday, you don't eat for, like, what is it, 46 days? Or
Lent?
yeah,
Well, yeah, when
well,
you
when
because you're not
early
counting
church.
Sundays. So yeah, I mean 46. It's actually symbolic of the 40-day journey of Christ, 40 days in the desert,
Mm,
40 years in the desert, I should say, 40 days in the desert when it came to Christ in temptation. So once again, you're right, but it ends up like at 46, I think, or 47 days.
mhm. So, it's Lent, and the
Yes.
early church used to practice that full 40 days, okay?
An observance.
An
Once again,
observance.
it is a way of putting the church united. It's
Mhm.
just not you and I deciding to go fast
Yeah.
individually. Not that there's anything wrong with that. What I'm
Mhm.
just saying is this is a common corporate way of having everyone acknowledge this season of Lent.
Yes, yes, and I think it's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it, but so during this early church days, people what the practice was historically, you'd go and do Lent for whatever 40 odd some days, 46, 7 days, and you wouldn't eat protein or eggs.
Yeah.
Eggs. The hens, they didn't observe Lent, right? They didn't stop laying eggs,
No.
right? So what would happen is in the days of the early church, the houses would be full of eggs because you can't eat them, but they kept collecting them and hiding them and storing them away. This is where that practice comes from. And what pagans have done and what the pagan world and these demons and these fallen angels have done, they have tried to distort and take away what Christians actually,
Yes.
celebrate
Yes.
corporately.
Deception. The
Yes.
great deceiver.
Yes, he's the
Fear.
great he's
He
always
is a
seeking out to
liar. Satan.
destroy. It's destroying this corporatism because, of course, the devil doesn't like when Christians corporately get together or, eh,
Fallen angels, spirits, demons. We're seeing
and the
demon
only way they can come after God is through God's God's creation, God's people,
people.
because they didn't win, with God because they're fallen angels. They were there,
And,
okay,
and
in the
and
angelic
how do they
world.
possess people? They possess you in your words, in your thoughts, in your, that's the
Mhm,
possession that happens. I believe that, as headliner Dan Bongino says, that these people are demon possessed
mhm,
over the Hamas, Hezbollah,
mhm.
because it isn't a spirit of God that they have. They have a God, but not the God. Once again, getting back into two brothers, Isaac, Ishmael, God set his covenant with Abraham and through his lineage of Isaac,
Mhm.
not through Ishmael and the 12 tribes. And forever and ever we'll be fighting. Now, see, progressives think that to create a better world, you just get rid of religion.
Yeah. You just get rid of religion, which is
Good luck on that one. Everything about what we do, from currency to healthcare to education,
mhm.
came from the early church. Catholicism launched hospital care. 1 out of 6 hospitals still in the world are Catholic hospitals.
Mhm. Yeah, well, everything we do, to the holidays we celebrate, even atheists, right? They celebrate Easter, they celebrate Christmas. These holidays uh, are rooted in the early church, which was Catholicism. This is the oldest church on the books. Okay, Catholicism, and it's this idea of uh, corporate practice of Christians, and of course, the fallen angels don't like that, and they go after the Christian people and try to deceive and take it away and use it. So a lot of times people are like, "Is it pagan holiday?" Kind of, because in a way it's yes and no, because it started out as Christian holidays, and what has happened is the pagans have tried to take it away, and they tried to distort it.
Well, it's man's inability to become God.
Mhm,
Because ultimately, isn't that truly, in a lot of essence, what these folks want? They want to become a God figure, a Godhead.
mhm,
And there's only one God. That's what I just read in the Nicene Creed. We believe in one God,
mhm,
not many gods, not your God, my God, and a God. It's a one God.
mhm.
And, you had brought something up that's interesting. Um, there are Christians as the infighting goes, because ultimately, isn't this kind of symbolic uh, of what is happening in the world today? Why are we where we're at culturally in the United States? Because conservatives have decided not to stand up, like this station, Cities 92.9, the News and Talk of Bloomington Normal. We stand up and we take action.
Mhm.
I'm not saying we're 100% right. We're not. We're trying to reconcile this thing.
Yeah.
Conservatives are trying to figure out how we've gone so far off the rails with everything.
Mhm.
Everything is up for grabs. But yet we used to have a moral compass in this country, and we're losing that moral compass.
Where is it? Because the revisionists have revised history, and it's all by design. We do have to take a quick break, and we didn't even get to All Souls Day. So what
We'll get
is
to
All
also,
Souls Day?
well, that's the day after All Saints Day, Cat, to keep
Yes.
it simple. But souls, so saints, according to the Catholic Church, are people who have died, right?
Mhm.
All souls are and are they've been canonized saints. All souls are the rest of the people,
In
right?
purgatory?
Well, there you go. That's Cat. You're onto
I'm
something.
onto
You're
something.
bringing up another
Another can
Cat.
of worms.
Cat, you're going down rabbit holes.
I'm
Here we
going
go.
down rabbit holes,
But that's
but
all right, because purgatory is a good thing to talk about
on the other side.
on the other
This
side.
is the Morning Buzz,
That's
Cities
what purgatory
92.9.
literally
Like I
is.
said, folks, in the 8 a.m. hour, I really wanted to have David on because today is November 1st, All Saints Day. He's kind of, he says he's not a theologist. When I have questions about theology, I go to David Paul Blumenshine, and you should
So if you
too.
can get 1%
He's
of
pretty good.
the right answer.
He's pretty
1%.
good. He's pretty
If I
good.
can get to 1%. I hope one day to get to 1%.
On the other side, we're going to talk about All Souls Day and how it relates to purgatory. Hopefully, next on the Buzz, Cities 92.9. So, good morning. Thanks so much for watching. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. Doing a little something different this year with November 1st, All Saints Day. David Paul Blumenshine, of course, joining me. Now, we didn't talk about All Souls Day, which is supposed to be tomorrow. All Souls Day, this is the opposite. Are they the opposites of saints?
Well, so All Souls Day for our listeners, and thank you for tuning in here. Um, All Souls Day is a holy day set aside for honoring the dead. The day is primarily celebrated in the Catholic Church, but it is also celebrated in the Eastern Orthodox Church and a few other denominations of Christianity. The Anglican Church, which mostly comes from England, right, is the largest Protestant church to celebrate the holy day. Most Protestant denominations do not recognize the holiday and disagree with the theology behind it. According to the Catholic belief, the soul of a person who dies can go to one of three places. This is where you brought up purgatory. The first is heaven, where a person who dies in a state of perfect grace and communion with God goes. Now, once again, got to realize this is the teaching of the
Catholic
Catholic Church.
Church, yes.
Um, the second is hell, where those who die in a state of mortal sin are naturally condemned by their choice. The intermediate option is purgatory, which is thought to be where most people, free of mortal sin, but still in a state of lesser venial sin, must go. Purgatory is necessary so the souls can be cleansed and perfected before they enter into heaven. There is scriptural basis for this belief. The primary reference is Second Maccabees, which is not one of the books. It's one of the 7 books that was removed from a lot of the Protestant scriptures. They don't recognize Maccabees, the Book of Wisdom, Sirach, Maccabees 1 and 2, and I have to look at the other ones that they don't. There's 7 of them, though. So turning the supplication they prayed in the sinful deed might be fully blotted out, thus made atonement for the dead, that they might be free from sin. They can't pray the dead. The people that are, or they can't pray for the people in hell. It's not for the people of hell. It's for people that are both, that all the dead, but those in purgatory and those in heaven. Which, once again, it's controversy, right? Because modern man,
because
and
I would
can jump on it.
probably, in my faith, because evangelist, I would say that I'm more so an evangelist, right? If it's
Yeah.
not in the Bible, throw it out, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's what Martin Luther translated. Now I do want to get in the 95th thesis, which he pounded on the door of the church in Wittenberg, Germany, the castle, on All Hallows Eve,
Okay, we're gonna
October
get into
31st.
this.
But Martin Luther King translated the Bible into German. He omitted the 7 books of the canon, which refer to the prayers for the dead.
We're gonna be back in just a second. I got to answer a couple of phone calls, folks. We're unpacking a lot here, so go ahead and smash the like button. If you're watching, share this out with your friends. Like I said, we're not experts. We're like you, and we're trying to understand it. We're not theologists. Eventually, I do want to get a theologist and somebody who is an expert on this. But we're just having a conversation. I think at the end of the day, what's important to note is that, hey, All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, these are rooted in Catholicism and they're rooted in Christianity. Okay, so these aren't pagan holidays, much like, Easter is not a pagan holiday. It's been warped, and I think pagans have traditionally worshipped it in a different way than actual Christians have celebrated these holidays. So I think it's interesting. We are going to be back talking a little bit about that. Smash the like button if you're watching. My good friend David Paul Blumenshine joining me in studio this morning. Woo! Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. And, oh, man, time really gets away from me when David Paul is in studio. We've been talking about All Saints Day, All Hallows Eve, and we touched on All Souls Day, which is tomorrow, November 2nd.
Yes.
Let's unpack that a little bit here, David. Briefly, let's talk a little bit about this. All Souls Day and purgatory, and really the gist of all of this, folks. All of these days in November and the October 31st, it's all Christian Catholicism based holidays, okay?
Traditions,
And
yes.
I think that pagans have taken it and warped it and tried to steal these celebration, or really these days of observance, corporate Christian observance. And because these demons, these fallen angels roamed the earth, and they tried to rob the Christians of these celebrations. But David, All Souls Day.
Well, so All Souls Day,
Okay.
obviously, is tomorrow, and that's when the Catholic faith tradition and many others. I mean, there's Eastern Orthodox traditions, there's Anglican traditions that still adhere to these days of remembrance, right? Or in the fact, today, as All Saints Day, is a holy day of obligation in the Catholic faith tradition. Um, as I said, I wish there was an easy way to take this down to the kindergarten level, but it's not. See, God gave us these minds to think something other than what NFL game's going to be on Sunday
Yeah.
and who's playing. And, where do I get my latest and greatest of entertainment in the big screen world of Netflix and all these other things? This stuff is steeped. And, that's what Martin Luther King, why All Souls Day, obviously praying to the dead. So the Catholic Church believes that there's 3 places that a person goes. It's either hell, HE double hockey sticks, or they go to purgatory or to heaven. They believe that most people are in purgatory, a place of suspension for purification, purgatory to purify, right? That nobody leaves the earth in a state of grace, pure grace. Well, that's one of the arguments between Protestants and Catholics, and has been for a lot of years, especially going back to October 31st of 1517. Do you know what happened on October 31st of 1517, Kat?
MLK.
Yes, and we're not talking about Martin Luther King from the United States. Just like when we talk about the Church of Philadelphia, that's not in Pennsylvania.
Yes. Okay. MLK, 1519-7 MLK.
1517.
Or 1517.
He pounded on the door of the castle in Wittenberg, Germany, his 95th thesis, basically contending what he didn't agree with. As a Roman Catholic priest, he was a priest. That's what other people don't realize. He was a priest. And so the belief in purgatory has not been without controversy, obviously. Certainly, and I'm reading from an article, some flagrant abuses of the doctrine were used to raise money for the church during the Renaissance. Famously, Martin Luther, the one we were talking about, 95 Thesis, on October 31st of 1517, Martin Luther argued with the monk Johann Tetzel over the sale of indulgences. Indulgences were sold as spiritual pardons to the poor and applied to the souls of the dead or the living to get people into heaven. The abuse of indulgences and the blatant, sometimes fraudulent practice of selling indulgences for money led to Luther's protest, one of the many in his 95 Thesis.
It's Martin Luther, not King.
Not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther.
Okay.
Martin Luther King.
No. I want to make sure that it's not MLK. I said MLK.
But it is MLK. It's Martin Luther is not Martin Luther King. That's right.
Yes.
We have Martin Luther King Day. We have Martin Luther. That's right. You're right.
And he wasn't a king. He was a priest.
He was a priest.
Okay. That's where I got messed up, because I was reading, and I'm not a Catholic. I didn't grow up in Catholic school. This is why David is on today, because I didn't grow up in Catholic school. I know David could speak to this more. I was under the impression that he was a king that took issue with this guy was a priest within the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, he did not set out to start a church. He wanted to reform the church. He was a reformer of the church, one of the original reformers of Christianity. Hence, then came the Lutheran Church, named after Martin Luther, and then you have the Calvin Church, the Calvinist, the Methodist, which is the branch of Protestantism, but you have the Assemblies of God. I mean, everything made its way from.
He wasn't in a role of government, though. He was a priest within the church.
No, he was a Roman Catholic priest who there's
See,
so much she's
sometimes
steeped in
I think
history.
that there's
There's
people out
so
there
many
who try
rumors
to.
because, once again, many people have tried to assign that this man was not faithful to the priesthood.
Yes,
That he
that's
was
where
yes.
I was reading this article.
I don't know who
And they
started,
were trying to
and
say
I'm
that
not
he
saying
wasn't
that's not
faithful.
true. It is true. I haven't spent enough time
Yeah.
researching somebody else's sin. I try to avoid studying other people's sin
Mhm,
because I need to be concerned with my own sin.
mhm. So All Souls Day. This
Yes.
is where you pray for the souls that are in purgatory. This is where this tradition comes from.
In
On November
Western
2nd.
Christianity,
In Western
commemorates the
Christian.
faithful departed, the
Mhm.
faithful departed, not those in
In
the other
hell.
place. That's right. HE double hockey sticks.
You can
Is
say
a
hell on
day.
the radio,
Can you
David.
say
It's
hell on
okay.
the radio?
Yeah, it's all
Well,
right.
as a Catholic kid, I wasn't really growing up. I didn't usually like to refer to hell because that's where Satan. No, in Satan. Yes.
Could it be
Could it
Satan?
be?
Yes, we have got to take a break. But when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show. I'm so glad David was here. We've gone through all 3 of the days, All Hallows Eve. We've talked about All Saints Day. We've talked about All Souls Day. And these 3 things, at the end of the day, they're Christian Catholic origins. Okay, this is where these holidays come from. And people say, "Cat, it's a pagan holiday. You can't talk about Halloween." That's what I got a lot of yesterday. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try to do some homework. Going to consult a Catholic.
Hey, there'll be plenty of people celebrating the Day of the Dead when it comes to the tradition of Cinco de Mayo.
Yes, yes, yes. So we're going to be back wrapping up the show. Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Cinco de Mayo actually celebrated in May, which was when All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day was actually celebrated back in May until
609. 609. Pope Gregory.
who is from Syria, I believe. Is
Pope
that true?
Gregory is from
Yeah.
Syria. Boy, you've got.
You don't know. Because there's popes that are from Ireland. It's a whole.
Pope John Paul II was from Poland. Yes,
from Poland.
It's very rare to find a pope that, like the current Pope Francis, he's from South America, which he is the first pope from South America. Believe it or not.
Wow.
Which happens to be one of the largest areas population of the Catholic faith. Still to this day.
Wow.
May 5th. Cinco de Mayo.
The celebration of dead, yeah. So some Christians, probably Protestants, don't believe that you should pray for the dead.
Yes, there is, because once again, they believe the state of grace, that somebody, as long as they profess that Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior, that they're instantly taken. And there is biblical reference, right? The 3 men on the cross, the 2 on each side of Jesus. The one said that, basically he said that he wasn't worthy of even being in this position, crucified next to the Messiah.
Mhm.
And he said, but he was a sinner. He'd never been baptized, never did anything. And Jesus said that because of his faith on that cross, that he would live with him in heaven forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the
So
story,
he went
right?
to went to heaven.
There's
Yeah,
a
I
great
know
thing.
that
I've
story.
posted it. The guy on the middle cross said I could come.
So
That's
he
all.
You didn't go to purgatory. He went up to heaven.
Well, that's what he said.
Yeah,
He
that's
said I
what
could come
the
with him
Bible
into the
says.
eternal. That's what Scripture says.
Mhm.
To the guy on the cross, and I don't know what the state he was in. I mean, like I said, Kat, if we don't get the unity of the Christian church right, you can't get anything right.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting. There is all kinds of, we've got all these different holidays, and people say they're pagan holidays. No,
Yeah.
they're Christian holidays. No, they're pagan holidays. And you got this back and forth. And you've got Christians who are upset that you practice, or that you observe Christmas or Easter or Halloween. We're back. Hold on one second. Woo! Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Happy All Saints Day. At the end of the day, it was a Christian holiday. I think we've proved that here through David Paul Blumenshine, who you can hear on Sundays from 1 to 3. David Paul Blumenshine, thanks so much for being here.
Very much. You know what? I misspoke, Kat. I get my, it is so crazy because there's so much information out there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that Cinco de Mayo was actually the celebration of the revolution. And, that's a whole nother. The Day of the Dead is, I think, coming up. The Day of the Dead. And it's a celebration too. And like I said, this stuff is so deep. Go out there and do your research.
Mm-hmm.
Live the Day of the Dead. Obviously, I'm sorry, I was mistaken. I said Cinco de Mayo. I don't know what was in my head.
It is okay
because of my limited Spanish too, which is about less than 1% of knowledge. But there's a celebration around the 3 holidays, the Day of the Dead, and it celebrates these things, and it's deep, Kat. It's deep.
Well, we've got to go.
Yes.
We've got to go. Eventually, we are going to do a deep dive on these 3 holidays, and we'll publish that at cities929.com. But you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you, and happy Wednesday. It's already Wednesday.